A husband has authority over his wife and over his children. Whatever reaction you may have had to that statement will be a beginning indication of your understanding of what authority is. Right? Your reaction, internal reaction to that statement, may align more with fear, oppression, and domination, which is the way Jesus tells his apostles, this is the way the Gentiles lord authority over them. They make their authority felt. They use their authority for their own gain. This is the reason that in our first reading, Ezekiel is blasting the shepherds of Israel. What's he say? He says, rather than pasturing your sheep, you've fed off their milk, you've worn their wool, you've slaughtered the fatlings, but the sheep you've not pastured. What Ezekiel is saying is you have authority over the sheep, just as a priest has authority over his people, and a bishop over his diocese, and the pope over the world, and a father over his children, and a husband over his wife, in order to make their lives awesome. That's why I've given you that authority. Not to use it for your own gain, but to die in yourself, pouring yourself out, so that every moment of every day you are applying the energy and the power and the strength and the will that I have given you to make the lives of those whose charge you have as best as possible, as good as possible. That's the kind of authority that Jesus speaks of when he teaches his apostles about authority. Do not make your authority over them felt like the Gentiles do. For you, the greatest will be the least. The master of all will become the servant. Right? When we hear Paul speak of the structure of the family in its proper order, in its goodness, when we hear of Moses articulating in the beginning the development, the creation of Adam and Eve in the proper order, the natural order of things, if we are worldly people, if we're wicked people, the idea for a wife, the idea that her husband would have authority over her is a scary thought. If we're wicked people, the idea of having authority over your wife as a husband, if that makes you feel excited, you're a wicked person. Because you're thinking the way Gentiles do. You don't understand authority, and therefore you shouldn't have it. Right? But if you think and understand about authority the way the Father gives it to those to whom he gives it, because he doesn't give it to everybody, and he gives it in a particular order for a particular reason. Not everybody has it. To those to whom he gives it, if you understand that authority with fear and trembling, this means I'm going to have to suffer. And this means I'm going to have to consider every reason I make a decision, and every time I exercise my authority, it must always be to my own expense and for the good of that other person. You're good. You understand that well. And anyone would be blessed to have you in authority over them. And as a woman, or as y'all with me, or as me and us with our bishop, and our bishops with the Pope, for us, if we understand authority well, we should want the strongest, toughest, boldest person in our life to have authority over us, because we would not need to fear the power they have. We would take shelter in the power they have, knowing they would only ever wield it against those who would threaten us, to protect us, to keep us safe, and to provide for us. When we see priests living their lives in ways that they are not emptying themselves out for their people, and remember, we're talking about a global experience here, right? We probably only have experience with priests in this diocese, or maybe New York, and we really don't see the degree to which priests can ensconce themselves in communities as princes, right? And in the past, how they've been treated that way. Bishops, for example, there needed to be a rule at some point in the history of the church that bishops must live in their diocese. Why would that seems weird, right? But it had to be there because the bishops had forgotten what authority meant, and they taxed their people so that they could live in nicer places than where their people lived. Like let's say you lived in Central Gaul or some horrible place like that where everything, there's all trees and there's no Walmarts or whatever, and you're like, no, I want to go live in Paris. So you would like leave your vicar general to run the diocese, and you'd go live in Paris, or you'd go live in Rome, or you'd go live in Avila, right? So that you could be comfortable and have a little resort, and you'd be feeding off of the labor of your people, but not shepherding them. That's a wicked, horrible person. I hope God has mercy on whatever kind of person exemplifies that in the past, right? But we have to consider this with great importance for our own particular lives, right? We have to consider any way that God, not man, but any way that God has, and I mean, even if man gives you authority, like if your employer gives you authority over people, that's not God giving you authority over them, okay? That could be changed. That's just a human social structure for that corporation, right? But even then, if you're entrusted by your employer with authority over other people, understand what that power is given to you for. In that case, authority, I should say, to exercise power over people is not given so that you feel good about yourself, right? It's given so that you can set those over whom you have authority up for success, so that you can get their back when they need it, so that you can lift them up when they've fallen down, so that you can push them forward when they lag, so that the job gets done and profits increase. Right? That's why an executive might give a middle manager authority. Right? God entrusts his authority to his priests and to his fathers, or to his priests, to his husbands, to his fathers. Priests, husbands, and mothers and fathers. Right? In that natural order of things, not priests and fathers, but man, I'm getting my terms all mixed up here because I'm getting excited. Let me clarify that. Within the religious life of God's church, priests have authority over God's flock. That's a true thing. You might not like it. I hope you do. I hope you love that. I hope you love that idea. I hope you love that God has given, well, he hasn't really given me authority because I'm just like the weird uncle that lives in the basement, right? Father Tim's the pastor, right? I hope. Now, and this is apart from like personality differences, right? I hope you guys love the fact that Father Tim actually has real divine authority over your lives. I hope that thrills you. Because you know that whatever power he has, whatever intelligence he has, whatever cunning he has, whatever cleverness he has, is going to be plied for your benefit. Right? I hope you take excited solace in that, right? Man, we have a good shepherd. Man, that's great. Right? And if that's the case, there's never any fear about this idea of, oh, well, I'm subordinate to Father Tim's mission for the life of the church here in this parish. That doesn't even come up. We're excited about that. That's great. I'm subordinate to Father Tim. That doesn't bother me in the least. Not in the least. Right? Because we know what authority is used for. I love the fact that I get to help him do his job. Because I know he knows what his job is. And he wants to do it. Right? The same thing is meant to be true in families. Where husbands, when they vow to their wives, I will do all for you, it should scare the bejesus out of them. Because they've just promised that woman that I'm going to spend the rest of my life using everything I have to protect you, to provide for you, and to make you happy. And when men forget that, and they think their wives or their families are there for them, then the saying, the true saying, wives be subordinate to your husbands, takes on an edge of terror. It takes on an edge of discomfort. Because that man doesn't know that his power is only used to protect me. He's used that power to oppress me, to dominate me. That's evil. No two ways about it. A man marries a woman to die for her. That's what he marries her for. Similarly, a priest is ordained, wed to the church, as Christ is wed to the church, to die for her, to use what he has for her, and to not let the wrong opinions of those subordinate to him to sway his duty because it would be easier for him. But rather to say, I see where you're coming from, you're wrong, but we're going to do it this way because that's the way we're going to do it. Right? Similarly, sometimes when there's a conflict in a household that's well run, well ordered, there's a disagreement that cannot find a solution because they're both good opinions, they're both good ideas, they're both good directions, and one voice has to rise above the others. It must be the husband's who is raising his voice so that his wife gets the best thing for her. Right? It doesn't compromise somebody's authority to always say yes, if you know that you could say no, right? You know, sometimes men are like, I just do what my wife says. Well, I mean, honestly, if your wife knows better than you, then that's the best thing to do. You know, that's not a matter. This is not what we're talking about in terms of authority and subordination, right? The authority is there to get the best answer and then put that into practice. If your wife always has the best answer, it would never be a good idea for you to tell her no. But you could. And sometimes you must. Just as mothers and fathers say yes to their kids for all sorts of things, but you know how you start saying yes to your kid because they're just annoying you? You know how that happens? You just get tired? That's evil. That's wicked. That's using authority. You're using your authority for yourself. I'm just going to do what they want so that they leave me alone. No. If you need to keep saying no, if you need to say, and I know this doesn't apply to everybody, or maybe you're looking back and you're like, oh man, yeah, I messed that up. Okay, don't worry about that, okay? We're here now. This is where we are, right? But if you have to spend every day of your children's teenage years fighting with them to go to Mass on Sunday instead of just saying, okay, it's just going to be easier for me not to say anything and just let you stay home. If you have to spend every day fighting with them, well done. That's great. That's fine. Okay? That's what your authority was there to do, to protect them. As long as they're under your care, you're there to protect them. Even if you have to tell them no, even if you have to fight with them, even if you have to grab a hold of them and drag them, you have the authority. That's what authority is for. And you're not doing it for yourself. You don't like this. I remember all the thousands of times my mama spanked me. She's like, this hurts me more than it hurts you. And I'm like, I don't believe you. But I do now. I understand that. Right? She would rather just let us run around as hellions and break everything and just not have to deal with it, right? But she didn't. She wanted us to have good character. She wanted us to be good men. Right? And I think she did a good job. I consider all of my personal faults to be of my own making because my parents did a pretty good job. Because they did that. They fought every time. Every time I wanted to do something stupid, they fought with me about it, right? This is what Jesus means when he talks about authority, okay? This is what he means when he gives some people authority over others. There is going to be a severe consequence to anybody to whom God has given authority and they have used it for their own gain. But there is going to be tremendous reward in the life of those to whom God has given authority and in the life of those over whom he has given them authority if they use it well. Let us understand power the way Christians understand it, to be poured out for the good of others, so that we do not need to fear those who have authority over us, but that we can live under their authority and under the protection of that authority to our own benefit and to the benefit of the whole church.